At 7:12 on a Tuesday morning, my wife set the brass cottage key beside my coffee and said, "Nathan says I'm not allowed over there anymore." Ellen's right hand was wrapped around her left wrist. There was dirt on one knee of her jeans and a small tear near the pocket where the fabric had caught against the porch rail. I asked what happened. She looked toward the window facing the cottage at the back of our property. Brooke pushed me away from the door. She said it quietly, almost apologetically, as though the sentence might become less painful if she made it smaller. 10 minutes later, our son came through the kitchen without knocking. He did not ask whether his mother was hurt. He did not look at her wrist. He looked at the brass key on the table. "Mom crossed a boundary," he said. Brooke reacted. "That's all." Ellen stared at him. She put both hands on me. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck and let out a tired breath. She was trying to close the door. "No," Ellen said. She was trying to close me out. He turned to me then, as if I were the reasonable man in the room and my wife were a problem we could solve together. "Dad, please don't make this bigger than it is. Before I tell you why those words mattered, tell me where you're listening from tonight." I picked up the key. It was old brass, dark around the teeth from years of use. Nathan had carried that same key on a red shoelace when he was 13 and helped me turn the cottage from a storage building into a place someone could live. That morning, it felt heavier than metal should feel. I put it in my shirt pocket and told him I would call him before dinner. He nodded, relieved. He thought I needed time to calm down. What I needed was time to read the agreement he had signed 22 months earlier. The cottage sat about 60 yards behind our house, on 2 acres outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It had 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a small living room, and a porch that faced Ellen's garden. For most of our marriage, it was my workshop. When Nathan was 13, he spent a summer helping me convert half of it into a guest room for my mother. He complained about sanding trim, drank too much orange soda, and hammered every nail as though the wood had insulted him. One afternoon, I found him sitting on the porch steps with a bent hinge in his hand. "I ruined it," he said. I showed him how to straighten it against the vise. "You don't throw away a door because one hinge bends," I told him. "You fix the part that failed." For years after that, whenever something went wrong between us, he would say, "Bent hinge, Dad." It meant we were still worth repairing. That is the memory I kept reaching for after he defended the woman who had pushed his mother. Nathan was 39 by then. Brooke was 36. Their daughter Ava was 10, and their son Eli was 6. They had moved into the cottage after Nathan's small flooring business lost its biggest contract. He called me on a Sunday night and said they needed 3 months to get steady again. Ellen and I had been saving for a long train trip through the Canadian Rockies. Instead, we used part of that money to finish the cottage kitchen and replace the old furnace so the children would be comfortable. I also covered the cottage utilities. I told myself it was temporary. 3 months became 6. 6 became a year. Then Brooke began a dental assistant program, and Nathan said moving would disrupt the children. We kept saying yes. That was my mistake. I confused helping my son with keeping my son close. The more uncomfortable the arrangement became, the more money I used to avoid the conversation. I paid the electric bill instead of asking why Nathan had stopped contributing. I repaired the water heater instead of asking when they planned to leave. I let silence do work it was never built to do. My longtime attorney, Marlene Price, had warned me at the beginning. Family arrangements need clearer paper than business arrangements, she said. She prepared a simple occupancy license. It stated that Nathan and Brooke could use the cottage without rent while they recovered financially. It also said Ellen and I remained the owners, that the arrangement created no ownership interest, and that either side could end it with 60 days written notice. Nathan signed it without reading every page. Brooke read every word. At the time, I thought Marlene was being overly cautious. 22 months later, I took the agreement from my desk and read it twice. Then I called Nathan. "I want you and Brooke at the house at 6, I said. "Can't we just talk now?" "No. Your mother deserves to be in the room." He was quiet for a moment. "Fine." At 6:15, Nathan and Brooke came through our back door. Ava and Eli stayed in the cottage with a movie. Brooke carried herself like someone arriving for a meeting she had already won. She sat at our kitchen table, crossed one leg over the other, and placed her phone beside Ellen's salt shaker. Nathan remained standing. Ellen had changed clothes, but I could see her wrist had begun to swell. I asked Brooke to tell me what happened. She looked at Nathan before answering. "Ellen came into our home without permission." Ellen shook her head. "I knocked. You opened the screen door." Eli was crying. He was having a tantrum. The clinic had changed my practicum schedule. Nathan was late, and I needed 2 minutes to make a call without him pulling at me. He was alone in the front room. I was 10 feet away. Brooke looked down at her phone. "When you opened the screen door, I thought you had come to inspect me again." Ellen leaned forward. "I called your name 3 times. Brooke's voice sharpened. "You don't get to monitor me because you own the building." There it was. Not regret. Not concern. Ownership. I gave her the first chance. "Did you push Ellen?" Brooke folded her hands. I moved her back so I could close the door. With both hands? She would not step away. Nathan finally sat down. "Dad?" Brooke felt trapped. Ellen looked at our son as though she were waiting for him to hear himself. "On my own property?" she asked. Nathan's mouth tightened. "See? That's the problem. You keep saying that. Our home is there." I opened the folder in front of me. "No," I said. "Your temporary residence is there." Brooke gave a small laugh, but Nathan saw the paper and stopped her with a glance. I slid 2 documents across the table. The first was formal notice ending the rent-free occupancy in 60 days. The second was an optional 12-month lease at below-market rent, beginning in 30 days with utilities in their names and clear rules about privacy, entry, maintenance, and conduct. Nathan did not touch either page. "You're charging us rent because Brooke touched Mom?" "I'm ending a free arrangement because neither of you understands what it was." Brooke picked up the notice and read the first paragraph. "This is retaliation. This is notice under the agreement you signed. You'd put your grandchildren out over one misunderstanding?" Ellen's hands tightened in her lap. I kept my voice level. "No one is being put out tonight. You have 60 days. You can sign the lease, or you can use that time to move." Nathan looked at his mother. "Are you really okay with this?" She took a long breath. "I was not okay when your wife pushed me. You did not ask." He looked away. That should have been the moment he corrected himself. Instead, he pushed the papers back toward me. "We're not signing anything tonight. I didn't ask you to." Brooke pushed her chair back and stood. "Come on, Nathan. They've made their choice. The back door closed behind them. A few seconds later, the cottage porch light came on. Ellen watched it through the window. "That used to make me feel good," she said, "knowing the children were close." I took the brass key from my pocket and placed it beside the folder. Neither of us touched it again that night. By Wednesday morning, Nathan had called twice and sent 5 messages. The first said we were overreacting. The second said Brooke had apologized in her own way. The third asked whether the rent amount was negotiable. The last 2 were photographs of Ava and Eli eating cereal at the cottage table. Under the second photo, he wrote, "They don't understand why Grandma wants them gone." I showed the messages to Ellen. She read the last one twice and handed my phone back. "I never said I wanted them gone." "I know you didn't." "He knows too." That was the first consequence of my notice. Not rent, not moving boxes. A story began forming around us, and in that story, Ellen was no longer a woman who had been pushed. She was the grandmother, taking a home away from 2 children. Nathan called again after lunch and asked whether we could be practical. The rent was more than they could manage, he said, and family should not treat family like tenants. I told him family should not treat help like ownership. When he claimed I only had Ellen's version of the push, I asked whether he believed his mother was lying. He answered with a sentence about people remembering stress differently. I left the lease offer open for 10 days and told him to use that time to decide whether he wanted ordinary terms or a different home. He ended the call without saying goodbye. That afternoon, Brooke changed the lock on the cottage screen door. She left the main deadbolt alone. The occupancy agreement prohibited alterations without written permission, and even Brooke knew not to go that far. But she replaced the small latch Ellen had opened the morning before. The new lock was bright silver against the old wood. Ellen noticed it while carrying tomatoes from the garden. She stopped on the path, studied it, and returned to our house without saying anything. I went outside with the agreement and photographed the alteration. Nathan met me halfway and dismissed it as a $12 lock. I told him the price was not the issue. Permission was. He asked me to stop making everything official. I reminded him I had tried informal for 22 months. Then his story changed. He claimed Ellen had grabbed Brooke's arm before the push. Brooke had not said that at our kitchen table, and Nathan admitted he had not seen it himself. I told him a new accusation did not become true because his wife needed it. As I turned away, he called after me, "You always choose Mom." She is my wife. I'm your son, and she is your mother. He had no answer for that. 2 days later, my daughter Rebecca called from Baltimore. Rebecca was 4 years older than Nathan and usually careful about entering family disputes. She loved her brother, but she did not protect him from facts. "Dad, is Mom all right?" she asked. Nathan had told her that Ellen suffered a confusion spell, became aggressive with Brooke, and fell backward when Brooke tried to close the door. He had shared the same version with our extended family, then asked everyone not to contact Ellen because she was supposedly embarrassed. Ellen had never had a confusion spell in her life. She was sitting 20 feet from me, reading a library book. Rebecca admitted she had suspected something was wrong with Nathan's account. I asked her to forward the group messages instead of interpreting them for me. The screenshots arrived a minute later. Nathan's first message said Ellen had become increasingly forgetful and intrusive. The second said Brooke had been forced to protect herself and the children. The third asked the family not to contact Ellen directly because it might upset her. Then came a sentence I read 3 times. We may need to make some longer-term decisions about Mom and Dad's property before this gets worse. I printed the screenshots and placed them behind the occupancy agreement. That evening, I asked Ellen whether Nathan had ever suggested she was forgetful. She looked down at the book in her lap. Not exactly. What did he say? A few weeks ago, he asked whether I had left the stove on. Did you? No. Brooke had. Why didn't you tell me? Because it sounded silly. Anything else? Ellen turned a page she had not read. He asked if I still felt comfortable driving Ava to piano lessons. I waited. She finally looked at me. I thought he was worried about my eyesight. Her eyesight was better than mine. The push had not created the story about Ellen becoming unreliable. It had given Nathan and Brooke a reason to use it. That answer opened a worse question. How long had my son been preparing other people to doubt his mother? On Saturday, I drove to Marlene's office with the folder beside me. She read the group messages, the occupancy agreement, and the notice. She confirmed that the notice had been handled correctly, then warned me not to touch their utilities, locks, or belongings. Angry families, she said, often accuse each other of actions before those actions happen. Nathan's message about our property concerned her more than the rent. He had linked a claim about Ellen's capacity to future decisions about land he did not own. He had no legal authority, but a family could create pressure long before it created valid documents. Marlene recommended one calm, written opportunity to correct the record. If Nathan refused to tell the truth and stop discussing our property, I should preserve the evidence and continue with the notice. I called Nathan from the parking lot and told him I had read the family messages. His first concern was that Rebecca had shared them. Mine was that he had described his mother as confused and tied that claim to future decisions about our property. Nathan insisted he was protecting Ellen's dignity. I told him he was protecting a version of events that made Brooke innocent and his mother unreliable. I gave him a clear choice: correct the family message, stop discussing our property, and acknowledge that he had not witnessed the push. He immediately asked what honesty would earn him. I said it would earn him nothing beyond having told the truth. When he asked about the cottage, I told him the notice remained and the lease offer might not. He said he needed to talk to Brooke. He did not correct the message that day. He did not correct it the next day either. On the 8th day, Nathan came to our front porch alone. He brought a paper bag from the bakery Ellen liked and stood outside until I opened the door. That mattered to me. He had spent 22 months walking in as though every door on the property belonged to him. "Can I talk to Mom?" he asked. Ellen was in the kitchen. She heard him and came to the hall, but she did not move closer. Nathan held up the bag. I brought the cinnamon rolls. She looked at the bag, then at him. All right. We sat at the kitchen table. Nathan took the chair where he had defended Brooke a week earlier. He kept both hands around his coffee cup. "I should have asked if you were hurt," he said. Ellen waited. "I was trying to keep things from getting worse." "For whom?" she asked. He looked down. "For everybody. That usually means the person who did the hurting." He swallowed. "You're right." It was not a perfect apology, but it was the first sentence that sounded like my son rather than Brooke's attorney. He said he had deleted the family message and would send a correction. He said Brooke was embarrassed and defensive. He said the pressure of school, money, and living so close to us had made everything feel bigger. Then he said something I had been waiting to hear. She should not have put her hands on you. Ellen looked at me. For the first time since Tuesday, some of the tension left her shoulders. Nathan asked whether we could have dinner together on Sunday, all 6 of us. No papers, no lawyers, just family. I wanted to believe that request more than I wanted to protect myself from it. So I said yes. On Sunday afternoon, Ava helped Ellen set the table. Eli carried napkins one at a time and placed them beside the wrong plates. Brooke arrived with a bowl of salad and a careful expression. She stopped an arm's length from Ellen instead of forcing a hug. I was overwhelmed that morning, Brooke said. The clinic changed my schedule. Nathan was late and Eli was melting down. When you opened the screen door, I thought you had come to judge me. I should have closed the door. I should not have touched you. Ellen studied her face. Thank you for saying exactly what happened. Nathan watched them as though a difficult bridge had held under weight. Dinner began gently. Ava talked about a science project. Eli told us his teacher had a turtle named Franklin. Nathan asked about a loose board on our porch and offered to fix it. For 20 minutes, the cottage notice stayed outside the room. I found myself listening for the old rhythm of our family. Ellen correcting Nathan's grammar. Brooke laughing at something Rebecca had said years ago. Children asking for more bread before finishing what was on their plates. It was not the same, but it was close enough to hurt. After dessert, Nathan cleared his throat. There is one thing we should settle while everyone is calm. Brooke reached into her purse and placed a folded document on the table. I did not touch it. What is that? I asked. A family agreement, Nathan said. Brooke kept one hand on the folded pages and said she was tired of feeling that one bad month, one disagreement, or one decision we disliked could leave the children without a home. For a second, I understood the fear beneath her entitlement. Then she unfolded the document. It was not prepared by a lawyer. It was 2 pages, typed in a clean business font. The first paragraph said, Ellen acknowledged that the contact at the cottage had been accidental and that Brooke had acted out of concern for her child. The second paragraph said, Ellen and I agreed to withdraw the termination notice. The third said we intended to transfer the cottage and the surrounding half-acre to Nathan within 1 year as an advance on his inheritance. Ellen stopped breathing for a second. I could see it in her chest. Nathan began speaking quickly. This would remove the uncertainty that caused the conflict. Brooke nodded. If we knew the cottage was really our home, everyone would respect the boundary. I looked at my son. Did you write this? We wrote it together. And this is why you apologized? No, I meant what I said. Then why is your mother's apology on the first page? It's not an apology. It's clarification. Ellen pushed her chair back a few inches. You want me to say I imagined being pushed. I want you to say, nobody intended to hurt you. You were not there. Nathan's face tightened. Mom, please. We are trying to keep this family together. Brooke looked at me. You have 2 properties and no mortgage. We are raising your grandchildren. We are not asking for something unreasonable. You are asking my wife to trade the truth for a house. That is not fair. I folded the paper once and slid it back. No, I said. Nathan leaned forward. Dad, listen before you decide. I listened. You said family should repair things. Repair requires naming the broken part. His eyes moved toward the children in the living room. So you are still making us leave? You have the lease option until tomorrow at 5. Brooke stood. We cannot live under your control. Then use the remaining notice period to find another place. She gathered the document. Nathan did not move. He looked older than he had at the beginning of dinner. "Bent hinge," he said softly. For 1 weak second, the old phrase reached me. Then I looked at the first paragraph of their agreement, where my wife's pain had been rewritten into an accident. "You are asking me to paint over the crack," I said. "That is not repair." He left without taking the cinnamon rolls Ellen had wrapped for the children. After the cottage door closed, Ellen carried the untouched package back to the counter. She stood there with both hands resting on the paper bag. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said. I pulled out a chair. She did not sit. The morning after Brooke pushed me, Nathan called before he came over. "What did he ask you to do?" "He asked me to tell you I lost my balance." I looked toward the dark window. He already knew? He knew Brooke had pushed me. She told him. Then why did he come here saying she only closed the door? Ellen pressed one thumb into the edge of the bag. He said Brooke could lose her position at the dental clinic if there was a complaint about violence. He said they could not afford another setback. I felt my jaw tighten. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I wasn't calling the police. I only wanted her to admit it and stay away from me until she calmed down." "And then?" "He said if I loved the children, I would not make them lose their home over one bad moment." The same sentence had been used before the notice existed. This had never been about our response. Before I ended the free stay, my son had already decided his mother's truth was a bill the family could not afford. "Why did you keep that from me?" I asked. Ellen finally sat down. "Because I thought he would come to his senses. I didn't want the worst thing he said to become the only thing you could hear." I reached across the table, but she pulled her hand back before I touched it. Not from me, from the pain in her wrist. That small movement did what Nathan's messages had not done. It showed me how much she had been carrying while I kept looking for a way to save everybody. That night, Ellen went to bed early. I stayed in the kitchen and made 2 cups of tea by habit. I set hers on the place across from me, then remembered she had already taken her medication and gone upstairs. The brass cottage key was still in the ceramic dish near the phone. I picked it up and turned it between my fingers. The teeth had been cut when Nathan was a boy. One edge was rounded from years on his shoelace. I could still see a faint streak of red thread caught in the hole. I tried to pull it free. My hands were not steady enough, so I set the key down, carried both cups to the sink, and poured out the tea. I washed Ellen's cup first. Halfway through, I had to stop and grip the counter until the pressure behind my eyes eased. My son had not failed to understand what happened. He had understood it and asked his mother to become less truthful so his life could remain comfortable. That was the part I could not repair for him. The next morning, I emailed Nathan. The 60-day notice remained. The lease offer was suspended until one final meeting. If he and Brooke corrected the false story without asking for property or access in return, I was willing to hear them. If they could not, they would move. He replied, 4 hours later, "I will come to the meeting. I will not participate in a campaign to shame my wife." He did not mention his mother. The night before the meeting, Ellen asked whether I was truly willing to let them rent the cottage if they told the truth. "I am willing to consider it," I said, "not because of the children, because I do not want one failure to make our son disposable." She rubbed the fading bruise near her wrist. "Bent hinge? Maybe. A hinge only works when both sides are fastened," she said. I carried her sentence into Marlene's conference room 3 weeks after the push. It was a small room with a round table, 4 chairs, and a window facing a parking lot. There was no audience. No one could perform for relatives or children. Nathan and Brooke arrived together. Brooke spoke first and said a tenants' rights organization had warned them the notice might be retaliatory. Marlene calmly summarized the written license. Either side could end the rent-free arrangement with 60 days' notice. No protected complaint had preceded it, and Nathan and Brooke had also received an optional lease offer. Nathan looked at me. "You really brought a lawyer into this. You brought a transfer agreement to Sunday dinner." Brooke opened a folder. "We were told verbally that the cottage would be Nathan's someday." "By whom?" Marlene asked. "His parents." Marlene turned to me. "Did you promise to transfer ownership?" "I never did." Nathan moved closer to the table. "Dad, you said the place was for family." "It is. That is not the same as saying it belongs to you. You let me rebuild it with you. When you were 13, you said I would always have a place here. Ellen had come with me but remained quiet until then." She looked directly at him. "A place in our lives is not a deed to our land." Nathan's eyes dropped. Marlene placed 3 pages on the table. The first was the occupancy agreement with both signatures. The second was Nathan's family message, describing Ellen as confused. The third was the proposed transfer paper he and Brooke had brought to dinner. Marlene told them this was their final opportunity to resolve the personal part. The property notice remained, but future family contact could be discussed if the false statements were corrected. Brooke folded her arms. "So we lose our home, but we can earn the privilege of seeing them?" Ellen answered before I could, "You did not lose a home, you lost free use of ours." Nathan flinched. Brooke turned toward him. "Say something." He rubbed his palms against his trousers. Then he looked at Ellen. "I should not have told people you were confused." Ellen gave him room to continue. He continued, "But you do come over too much. You do question Brooke in front of the children. You do make her feel like she is living under inspection." Brooke nodded as he spoke. Ellen's face remained still. "Did she push me?" Nathan looked at the table. "I wasn't there." "She told you she did." His head lifted. For the first time, Brooke looked uncertain. Nathan stared at his mother. "That was private." "No," Ellen said. "What happened to me was private. You made my memory public." Marlene did not interrupt. Neither did I. Nathan reached for the occupancy agreement and turned it over, as if the blank side might offer him a different answer. "I was trying to hold my family together," he said. I finally spoke. "You chose the version that cost you nothing." He looked at me. "What do you want from me?" "The truth without a condition attached." "And then what? We get the cottage back?" Ellen lowered her eyes. Even now, his truth still had a price attached. I closed the folder. "No, the lease offer is withdrawn. You will move by the deadline." Nathan stared at me. "You came here already decided." "No, I came here willing to hear whether you could tell the truth without being paid for it." No one raised a voice. There was no audience and no dramatic exit. Marlene turned to the move-out checklist and explained the process. Nathan and Brooke had 31 days remaining. They were responsible for removing their belongings and returning all keys. We would complete a written condition report together. If they stayed beyond the deadline, we would use the ordinary court process. Nothing would happen overnight. Brooke gathered her papers. You are choosing property over your son." I looked at Nathan, not her. "No, I am choosing not to fund the way he treated his mother." Nathan left without looking back. The first week after the meeting, nothing changed. The porch light still came on at dusk. Ava still crossed the grass for piano rides with Ellen, though Brooke began walking her halfway. Eli still waved at me from the cottage window. Ellen never punished the children for what their parents had done. I held on to that. The second week, boxes appeared on the cottage porch. Nathan had found a 2-bedroom apartment 15 minutes away. The rent was higher than he expected. The landlord required a security deposit and proof of income. He began taking weekend flooring jobs again. Brooke completed her dental assistant program and accepted additional hours at the clinic. Those were ordinary consequences. Inconvenient, expensive, humbling. No one lost a career. No one was arrested. Their marriage did not collapse in a day. They simply had to pay for a life Ellen and I had been carrying for them. 3 days before the deadline, Nathan came to the workshop while I was repairing a cabinet door. He stood near the vise where, 26 years earlier, I had shown him how to straighten a hinge. He said they were $2,800 short on the deposit. I kept sanding and asked whether the landlord would divide it. Nathan said no, then asked to stay until January, 4 additional months to save. The notice ended Friday. He had been given 60 days, but he argued that the first weeks had been spent trying to repair the family. "You spent them trying to make your mother withdraw the truth," I said. His face tightened. "So that's it? You are going to let the children pay for this? The apartment is available if you solve the deposit. We don't have it." I pointed out the 2 vehicles, his equipment, the smaller unit he had rejected, and the landlord who might discuss terms. Those choices were harder than asking me, but they were still choices. He stared at me. "You know about that? She asked whether I was going to rescue you again. What did you tell her?" "The truth. I don't know how to be your father without rescuing you yet, so I'm learning." He looked down at the half-sanded cabinet door. "I said things I shouldn't have said." "You did. I was scared. I believe you." "Doesn't that matter? It explains your choice. It does not undo it." He sat on the old stool near the wall. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "What if I correct the family message?" "You should." "And apologize to Mom?" "You should do that too." "Would you extend the notice?" "I won't." He looked up sharply. "Then what is the point?" I set the sandpaper down. "The point is that an apology is not rent." He stood. I could see anger in the way he gripped the stool, but he released it carefully. "I thought you loved us." "I do. It doesn't feel like it." "I still love you. I stopped making disrespect comfortable." He looked at me for several seconds. Then he walked out. The next morning, a new message appeared in the family group. Nathan wrote that Ellen was not confused, that he had overstated his concerns, and that Brooke had pushed her during an argument at the cottage. He did not excuse it. He did not ask anyone to keep quiet. He ended by saying the move was the result of choices he and Brooke had made, not something Ellen had done to the children. Rebecca called me after reading it. "Did you make him send that?" "I did not." "Did you give him the money?" "No, I didn't." She was quiet. "Then maybe he finally heard you." Maybe he had. Hearing was not the same as changing, but it was a beginning. They moved out on Friday. Nathan rented a truck. Brooke's brother helped carry furniture. I stayed available. but did not direct them. At noon, Ava crossed the yard holding the ceramic dish from the cottage entryway. "There are keys in here," she said. Nathan followed behind her with the condition report. We walked through the cottage together. There were nail holes in 2 walls, a stain beside the stove, and a cracked bathroom shelf. Nothing unusual after almost 2 years with children. I wrote it down. Nathan signed the page. Brooke stood on the empty porch with Eli beside her. She handed Ellen the bright silver screen door key. "I was wrong to touch you," she said, "and I was wrong to let Nathan tell people you were confused. I do not expect you to trust me." Ellen closed her fingers around the key. "Then do not ask me to pretend I do." Brooke nodded once. It was not reconciliation, but it was the first apology she had offered without a document waiting behind it. The new apartment landlord had agreed to split the deposit over 3 months after Nathan offered proof of his weekend contracts. They would be crowded, but they would be housed. Before they left, Ellen knelt beside Ava and Eli. "You still come for piano and Saturday pancakes," she said. "This is between adults." Ava hugged her carefully. Eli asked whether Grandpa was mad forever. I told him no. Being firm is not the same as being gone. Nathan heard me. He carried the last box to the truck, then returned with 1 key in his hand. It was not the new silver screen door key. It was the old brass key. The red thread was still caught in the hole. "I kept this one," he said. "I guess I thought it meant something." It did. He placed it in my palm. "Bent hinge?" he asked. I closed my fingers around the key. "Maybe," I said, "but you have to straighten your own part this time." He gave one small nod, then he left. For several weeks, Nathan only came when he brought the children. He did not ask for money. He did not enter our house without knocking. Brooke stayed distant. Ellen was polite, but did not pretend trust had returned. That was the part some people do not understand about forgiveness. You can release the wish to punish someone and still require distance from the behavior that hurt you. 2 months later, Nathan arrived on a Saturday morning with his toolbox. He stood on our porch and knocked. When Ellen opened the door, he pointed toward the loose board he had mentioned at dinner. "I came to fix that," he said. "No charge, no request." Ellen looked at him for a moment. Then she stepped aside far enough for him to carry the tools through. He repaired the board, tightened the rail, and replaced 2 rusted screws. When he finished, he sat on the porch step instead of coming inside. Ellen brought him coffee. He took the cup with both hands. "I should have checked on you first," he said. She sat in the chair beside him. "Yes," she said, "you should have." There was no dramatic embrace, no promise that everything was fixed, but she stayed. That afternoon, I put the old brass key on a hook inside my workshop. Not in the cottage dish. Not on Nathan's ring, on my wall. The key still opened the door, but access belonged to us again. The cottage was rented a month later to a retired school counselor named Helen. She paid on time, knocked before entering our garden, and brought Ellen a jar of peach preserves on move-in day. The first rent check covered the train tickets Ellen and I had postponed nearly 2 years earlier. We did not take the trip to celebrate winning. We took it because our life had been waiting while we kept financing someone else's comfort. Nathan drove us to the station. He lifted our bags from the trunk and hugged his mother carefully. When he hugged me, he said, "I'm working on the hinge." "I know," I told him. Then Ellen and I boarded the train. The last thing I saw through the window was my son standing on the platform without asking me to solve anything. That was not full repair. It was the first honest piece of it. So let me ask you this. Would you have ended the free stay after the push or given your son one more chance to make it right?